Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Review. I'm your host, Dylan Wallace. Today, we got a great issue for you guys. I will say it's going to be a weird issue for you guys. If this is your first time tuning in, you may want to tune in to some other ones just because this is just going to be a hodgepodge of different styles of comic reviews that I do. But with that being said, it isn't a weird kind of week, so tomorrow, which is going to be Friday, I'm recording this on Thursday. It's going to post on Saturday. Traveling with the whole family, so wanted to make sure that I got a show done, but life happens and tends to get in the way of things. So I mentioned it on the wrestling show, and if you listen to the wrestling show along with the comics, you're a real one, so I appreciate you for that. But I mentioned it there that, and I've mentioned it in episodes in the past, we have a stray cat that we've been harboring in our basement for a long while now, and it got to the point where we weren't treating her for fleas, and as you can imagine, she got fleas. So we let her in and out of the house, brought them down into our basement, and just started feeling biting one day, and it only got worse and worse and worse. So it got to the point where I was like, all right, well, let's get the cat out of the environment, and then let's go ahead and do one of those flea bombs or foggers or whatever. So that took place on Monday, which then screwed everything up that I was trying to do on the wrestling side. Huge weekend on wrestling, the previous weekend as well, so a lot of my effort and attention was focused on that. So all that to say is I didn't plan on really doing an Omega because I wasn't going to have Friday to record. I wasn't going to have Saturday. But then I didn't have enough time to really be reading books as well. So this review today is only going to be 7 books. But that also being said, we'll talk about the polls. We'll talk about the polls that I have coming for next week. Those will be featured on next week's show. And I'll be out of town, not only just this weekend, but then the following week I'll be out Monday and Tuesday as well. So likely no Omega for next week. And it'll be catching up on the books that I picked up for this week. So I picked them up today, just didn't get a chance to read them. But, you know, we'll get around to it eventually, basically. So with that being said, we'll start off as we usually do, and we'll talk about the polls for the week. So we're locked and loaded with those polls. If I pull up the screen, get it all situated here. Here are the books that we have here. It's actually a little different than what I mentioned before, and we'll get to that. But first, I always like to talk about the picks of the week, and where things are shaping out right now for League. So as you can see, by far and away, Absolute Batman number 10 is running away with it. 45% is really, really high. Anything above 40 is like, this is clearly by far and away book of the week, but at 45, it's like, man, just freaking crushing it. So the nice thing about this week is, of the 5, I have 4 of them. So I do have Absolute Batman. Imperial number 2 I picked up. Absolute Flash I picked up. Invincible Universe Battle Beast I have not been reading, but I've been hearing good things. I may have to pick up the trade on that if it just kind of consistently stays good. And then Zatanna number 6 I have as well. So those are the current rankings, and then let's just talk polls real quick. So none of these books will be part of this review, but if you're reading or watching this and listening on a timely fashion, just want to put it out there. Here's what I've picked up and will be on kind of the future shows. So I'll read through it, and then I'll kind of point out some things here and there for the audio folks. So we have Absolute Batman 10, Absolute Flash 5. Death of the Silver Surfer number 2. I think the art on that just looks absolutely incredible. I'll just click on it real quick for the video folks so you can go ahead and see that. But I mean, like, look at that. It's Galactus basically like fading away, like Thanos snapped fading away. It's like a skull of Galactus. It looks insane. So honestly, on just that alone, I was like, hell yeah, I'm getting this book. The first issue was really awesome art too. Then Exceptional X-Men number 11. And so I stopped pulling Exceptional X-Men, but I thought that this was my last one. It actually wasn't in my pull box. I saw it on the shelf. I was like, you know what, I'll just grab it. The same actually happened for New Champions as well, but I was pretty sure I kept that too. But But then we have G.I. Joe number 9, Imperial number 2, New Champions number 7, like I mentioned, The New Gods number 8, then Red Before Black, which is a Boom Studio joint, number 6. Wasn't in the pull list, but the shop's going to order it for me, so that'll come in at some point. Then we have Red Coat 13, Tin Can Society, super excited to get back to that one. That has been Comic of the Weeks. I think that's one of the few 5s out of 5 that I've given this calendar year, so super excited to get back to that. Then we get to the Ultimates. So Ultimate Black Panther 18, Ultimate X-Men 17. I thought that this was going to be my last one. I did see copies on the shelf. It wasn't in my box, so I was like, you know what? We'll just leave those on the shelf. But with that, I was like way under budget, so that I did decide to grab the Exceptional X-Men and New Champions as well. So I picked those up, but I left the Ultimates off. I like the Ultimates itself. I like Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate Incursion. I'm reading through that because that's going to link everything together. But between Black Panther and X-Men, I almost felt like I was just reading it just to say I was collecting the whole thing. So that's really the reason I dropped off there. I thought this would be the last one. It wasn't in my box. So I was like, okay, I don't feel obligated to buy it. And I haven't been, clamoring to just continue one more issue. So I was like, screw it. We'll make the clean break here. And then the last one on here is Zatanna number 6. So those are the pulls that we have. Again, none of the books will be reviewed for this week, but you'll have them reviewed for the following week. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into our reviews, shall we? And so what makes this issue a little odder as well is I don't have 10. I have 7 to review, so it should be a shorter one for that reason. And it's not any of the current books, as you heard. Usually it's mostly the current stuff that I post on Saturday, and then what I post what are called the Omega runs, and that is backlog stuff or just a continuation if I had like more than 10 books from the current week. So this is truly all backlog, but on top of that, it's just really weird and bizarre backlogs. It's only 7 weird, bizarre books, nothing from this week. The only thing that is any remnants of like what is a typical issue are just talking about the pulls at the beginning and then the pulls for the next week at the end. But that's okay, just kind of keep you guys on your toes, and that's why I mentioned at the top, like if this is your first one, this is not going to be kind of a typical issue. The format is kind of the same, but like the content itself is a little bizarre. So I'll call out real quick these 7 books that I'll be reviewing, just so the audio folks kind of know, and you can see it up on video here. So I have them here. Scarlet Witch, number 4. And this one is an interesting one. So it says The Avengers as the cover, but it's like a collab that Disney is doing with Marvel. This is from way back in the day. This is from 2023, I think January. So it's actually an Amazing Spider-Man, a previous run of Amazing Spider-Man, which was notoriously horrible. But at the time, before I took comics like as seriously as I do now with like doing a podcast and reviewing them and all that stuff, I just literally got this to put this onto my son's bookshelf, and we were playing upstairs. All the books were scattered all around, and then I saw this one on the ground. He's like, I never even read this one. I was like, screw it, let's just go ahead and read it while I was playing up there with him, and he's like playing onto blocks or something like that. And it's like, might as well just incorporate it in the show and just say that I read it. Holy crap. Reading through it, I was like, I understand why people did not like this series. So that's what this actually is. It's Amazing Spider-Man number 17, but back from 2023. Then we have Batman the Brave and the Bold, number 15. Then we have Storm, number 4. This is the Marvel Rivals variant cover, which looks freaking dope. Then we have Batman 156. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 20. And another weird thing about this one is I'm starting to dig into the trades a little bit. So I have Local Man Volume 1, and I just read the first issue for that volume. So I think there are 5 in this one, and I have Volume 1, I have Volume 2, I have the whole run of Local Man, so we will eventually get through that. But we're kind of getting to that point where it's a little bit of, not really slim pickings, but if I'm trying to grab like one from each series, I've been like knocking off some stuff. So especially now that Outsiders is completely done as well. So we're starting to get into trades, which is sweet. So we're getting close to being caught up, and certainly as close as we've really ever been, which is dope. So those will be the 7 books. We will review them in that order. So let's go ahead and start here with Scarlet Witch number 4. And and this series has been really good thus far. So I gave this one a 3.5. A league gave it a 4. I think the biggest thing for me on this one was just the conclusion to this arc just felt like nothing special beyond what you would expect for like a mini boss or a mini villain, a 4-part series in a longer run, how it would end. So all the good guys win. It doesn't seem like there's anything like huge that happened out of it. And of course we have to do this little teaser at the end, but that almost felt a little forced. So for me, the landing, it wasn't quite there. It was really good on the art side of things with the big action scenes, so that helped it out. But I still ended up landing on a 3.5 in my opinion. And then League came in with a 4. So the story thus far is Scarlet Witch, Wanda, and this book came out in September 4th, 2024. So she is, in her town, is attacked by the Griever. And in the very first issue, she dies, or at least we think that she dies, but she actually ends up in this land in between. And she has to fight her way out. Up in the real world, it is Quicksilver. It is her assistant, Darcy, and Darcy has recruited one of her, not arch enemies, or nemesis, but, you know, a villain from the previous run, Hexfinder. And so Hexfinder decides, okay, I'll help out, because at the end of the day, if there's no world, like, there's no point in, you know, whether the Scarlet Witch exists or not. And the Hexfinder recreates the last door, which is basically a door that people will enter through if they have no other hope but the Scarlet Witch to save some sort of situation. It's destroyed when the shop was destroyed, and the town is basically under ruin from the Griever and her endlings is what they're called. And she reconstitutes it, brings back Scarlet Witch. So now we have the big fight. And that's a lot of this issue. It's just the fight between Scarlet Witch and Hexfinder. And you just kind of have like a classic straight up, if you are a fan of MMORPGs, a tank and spank. So you basically facing off the boss, everyone just like DPSs them down, just shooting all their spells and abilities, but there's no other mechanics that you need to do, right? Just burn them down, get the health bar from 100% down to 0%. That's basically what Wanda does in this. She just fights, and she wins in the end. The other person that they had recruited as well to help out was Polaris, and they had Polaris helping out with the endlings because I guess they had some nickel in there, and she has magnetism abilities just like her father Magneto. So that's basically the story. And then towards the end, they realized that they had a demon or a villain or an internal god, Scythian, who they need to now stop, is basically the cliffhanger that we're left off on. So for the next arc, it'll be going after him. So let's go ahead and flip into some of the artwork here. Artwork, I think, does really pick up. Like, look at this fight that you have right here between the Griever and Wanda. Definitely more on the Gooner style, if you can see what I see here. But it's not like too over the top where it's like edgelordy. But still, nonetheless, Griever is pretty stripped down, and Scarlet Witch is as well. But overall, I mean, it's fine. It's very PG-13. So you just have Scarlet Witch fighting. I think she puts basically a spell hex on the Griever where it's like this like little pustule thing, and then from there Quicksilver is able to attack. And when he does that, it opens up or distracts Griever to the point where Scarlet Witch is unable to just basically take her out, which she does. Returns the city back to how it is. Scarlet Witch has a little convo with Hexfinder on, you know, are they going to keep beefing or not? It seems like they likely are, but for now, they'll let bygones be bygones. And Polaris and Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch have a little quick meal until she realizes that Scythian is now gone, and that's who they need to go after. So yeah, that's Scarlet Witch number 4. Not the time to jump in for this arc, obviously. It just concluded. This whole run is completed, by the way. So now they're on to, I think, Scarlet Witch and Vision. But the next one, if you could find it out there, Scarlet Witch number 5, would be the time to jump in. But I think at this point, you might as well just get into Scarlet Witch and Vision at this point. So But anyways, I gave this one a 3.5, and Lee gave it a 4 for Scarlet Witch number 4. Then next up here is our Spider-Man, or Amazing Spider-Man number 17. This one came out, again, a long time ago, January 11th, 2023. It was up in my son's room, so I was like, okay, let's just go ahead and read it. And then I was reading through it, I was like, oh yeah, I see why people said that this was horrible. So I gave it a 3, Lee gave it a 3.1, which means cue up the music. I don't know what they were thinking here. It's so bad. It's so bad. Peter Parker, from what I can gather, is in the dark web, I think is what they call it. Oh no, Limbo. That's where he's at. But it's not like traditional Limbo, like Magic's Limbo on the X-Men style. It's like this weird demonic thing. They're trying to make all these jokes about it. Everyone like has a part to play that's like this demon. So there's like a version of Peter Parker, but they have a slightly different name. But their whole objective is very different than like Peter's of like, yeah, he's like jokey and stuff. But this one, it's like way over the top in how they deliver and, you know, go about trying to replicate what's happening on Earth, but down in Limbo. So Peter's there. J. Jonah Jameson's down there as well, and Peter's trying to find a way to get out. Peter's like very serious in this, which is so bizarre and so opposite of what Peter's like, but maybe he needs to be that way in Limbo in order to get out. I don't know. I just read the one issue. They come up with some plan to try to figure out and trick them how to get out, but in the end, one of these demons basically turns into Peter, and it seems like he's going to be like the quote-unquote real Spider-Man, but of Limbo, and potentially set up a big fight between the two. So that's the story. It's weird. It's bizarre. It doesn't make any sense. It's a terrible one probably to jump into. This whole run and series of like this 2023 was really, really bad, like notoriously bad. And I see why it is, and now I know, just like stay away. Now you have a new run of Amazing Spider-Man. I haven't heard good, bad, or indifferent. That's just me personally. I also haven't been looking for it. And you can get your full Spider-Man fix from the Ultimate Universe anyways, which plays Peter Parker in like a pretty cool sense of getting his powers later in life. He's an adult. It's like it all works out pretty good. And it's Hickman writing it, of course, so that makes it even better. But for this, for like that whole run back in 2023 or 2023, stay away. Stay the F away. Again, I gave it a 3. Lee gave it a 3.1. Even on the art side of things, it's like it's fine. I mean, it's Marvel, like whatever, but it's not that great either. So it's just unfortunately very bad. So here they are in Limbo. They have J. Jonah Jameson down there. They're trying to concoct a plan on how to be able to get out of here. And then at the same time, like that's pretty decent. You have kind of the Insidious 6 is what they call it. So everyone's like slightly different than what they would be on Earth, right? So it's like everything's the Canadian version compared to like the American version, if you will. But it's even still, it's like doesn't really make any sense at all. It's like, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? So just unfortunate, but hey, past the time. I can say that I checked it off. This is where that one of those Limbo Spider-Man becomes like Spider-Man, but he looks nothing like it. Kind of a cool image there, but I think overall you can catch my drift of like just wasn't an enjoyable story to read. But it's checked off. It'll sit on my son's bookshelf, and that's where it'll probably be for eternity. Next up here, Batman the Brave and the Bold number 15. So this is pretty good. I gave it, well, let's go back to the overview. I gave it 4. Lee gave it a 3.8. I was surprised that this one dipped a little bit. I think the previous one, Lee gave it a 3.9. I thought this was just as good as the other ones, and I like the new story that they have in here. So reminder, this is an anthology. Each one of these issues you'll have anywhere from like 4 to 5 different books. For whatever reason, I always need to pull up my notes for this because it's so many stories in one. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, yeah, just 4 for this one. And we have continuation of Nightwing and Deadman, which has been like okay, not great. Then we have Time Jerks, which I find pretty hilarious, and that's the conclusion there. Then we have Duality Part 1, so that's the start of it's a noir. I'm liking that a lot. And then we have the conclusion to Invaders. So actually now I think about like all four, like it's like, okay, I could see it maybe being a little bit lower, but I thought it was pretty fine. So let's start off with Nightwing and Deadman. So Deadman, and this one's subtitled Down the Road. Deadman and Nightwing have carny backgrounds. So obviously Nightwing was trapeze artist, and so was Deadman, but just years and years before. But Deadman got his abilities from some god that basically found favor in him, so his whole power is he can come back, but he's got to possess other people in order to like interact with the real world. So his god was like kind of summoning to him. He met up with Nightwing. Nightwing saw this woman jump off of a bridge. Nightwing wasn't able to save her in time, but there's no body or anything like that, so they're trying to figure out like what all this has to do. Since they have this carny tie, they're like trying to find, they think it has something to do with their carny, I guess friends, but more of like those types of people. So they're trying to go from different carnival to carnival. They find a clue at some random place in Louisville that brings them to the next site. So in this issue where we pick up, and in part 3, we find out that they picked up some hitchhikers along the way, which are a couple other folks from the previous town, and they're trying to lead them to like this ultimate carny haven, if you will. So they get to the spot where they're supposed to be, but the people that brought them there betrayed them, and it turns out that they're looking to basically sacrifice Nightwing and Deadman and be part of this whole ritual. There, Nightwing sees the woman who died, and I guess she didn't die, but it looks like she's somehow corrupted. And we find out that she's actually corrupted by the same god that found favor in Deadman. So for whatever reason, he's forsaken Deadman and now chosen this woman and maybe like some others to be quote-unquote his disciple. And they're looking to sacrifice Nightwing and Deadman. So Deadman starts to basically realize that it's a big part of the story. But then towards the end, Nightwing is pushed into like this pit to then be a prisoner and probably just await sacrifice. So that is the story. It's a little weird, a little bizarre. If it was just that on its own, I would probably give that issue alone a 3.5. But it's kind of interesting, and the art is really good when Deadman goes in and like possessing and things like that. So that's that part. Then we get to Time Jerks. Time Jerks is a continuation of the previous part where Booster is our main guy, but he's just a chucklehead doofus, and somehow, some way, he screwed up by traveling through time, and butterfly effect somehow knocked the asteroid that's supposed to take out the dinosaurs. He knocked it out of the path. It never actually hit Earth. The dinosaurs grew up to like create society. And so now he's changed it back, and it does destroy society. But instead of the Justice League, there was the Jurassic League. And the Jurassic League also has their version of Booster as well. So in this part, we find out that the Jurassic League Booster is trying to do the same thing that the human Booster did. And he's like, oh yeah, there's this whole asteroid that took out all the humans. So now I got to stop it. And now he's trying to take out the humans. So now you got like this back and forth competing timelines on like dinosaurs making it or the human race, making it. And so Booster's the human version is like, oh shit, like what are we gonna do here? He's like, okay, what I'll do is like somehow, some way we'll come up and meet each other, and I'll go and I'll steal his time machine and then just drive off. And that's exactly what he does. But when he goes to do that, the other dinosaur Booster is like, you dumbass, I'll just go and take yours then. But the human Booster was actually smart and destroyed his. So there's only one of these time machines that can actually go about flying off. And so he goes, and the human Booster is then able to save all the humans, of course. The asteroid does hit when it's supposed to hit. Everyone lives happily ever after, and the cheeseburgers are saved. Thank goodness. But the funny thing is that Booster has this little AI drone that's with him, and so did the Jurassic version. And the Jurassic AI, they like ask it, it's like, are you gonna miss your dinosaur Booster? And then the drone turns to him and says, would you miss if yours was gone? He's like, touche. So it's a nice way to kind of tie that loose end there. So cute, fun little story there. If I was just to give that book on its own, probably a 4 for that one. Then we have Duality, which again is a noir. We have Montoya, who is the head commissioner. A lot of this is a focusing on her struggles with alcoholism. She goes to like an AA meeting. It's a lot of talks about like, trying to get over the hump of like not drinking. And she has a sponsor that she meets up with, but as she's talking through trying not to drink, there's also like this murderer out there that is specifically targeting people that are close to her. And so sure enough, she meets up with the sponsor. She gets a call. When she gets a call, then she gets called back and realizes that her sponsor was actually hurt. But now she's like, crap, like all this is supposed to stay anonymous. And now, of course, like now I have someone else that was tied into me, but I don't want to out her. So now Montoya's basically like, I got to figure this out basically on my own and take on this whole mystery on like who's doing this, why are they targeting me, what's going on here. So that looks really cool. If I just had that one alone, it'd be anywhere between probably a 4 and a 4.5. Just building up a lot of the suspense and the mystery, and it's almost like a thriller. So I'm looking forward to that. And then next we have the conclusion to The Invader. So it's basically like a gray-skinned alien crash lands on Earth. Batman finds out, but then Hal, the Green Lantern, is there as well, but he's like kind of a chucklehead doofus. And so at first Batman like realizes this great skin alien is like releasing this radiation and he needed Hal's help. It's interesting how they don't have any details or understanding on what this alien race is and how it all works. And then it gets to a point where Batman's like, all right, Hal, just go ahead and like try to prevent other people from interacting with, so like the radiation doesn't affect them. But then Batman, like they finds him, and then unfortunately he gets affected as well. So then we pick up in this part, Hal flies up into space, it recharges his ring, he's able to then find Batman, flies down, sees all what's going on there, and then temporarily is able to like get Batman away so it's not hallucinating him, but Batman realizes what's actually going on here. Alien is just terrified, and for some reason this radiation is radiating from his body, but it's not an attack or anything like that. So they put this force field around the alien, and then they're basically able to visually communicate what all needs to get done to his ship, so that way he can leave, and he does leave, and everything ends up being like kind of happily ever after. And then Hal's like mind like kind of gets all screwed up so that he doesn't think that he's better than Batman, or like Batman wasn't able to figure it out all on his own. So interesting little story there. If I would have to say, probably between 3.5 and a 4. So you mix all that together. I came out with a 4 and an end here is what my thoughts are on it. Again, Batman Brave and the Bold, there are 20 issues in total. It's a whole bunch of anthologies that have been all mushed together and like kind of spread out. And so first half, I would have said skip. There's only a handful in there that were decent. But now we're getting to the point where more times than not, they're better than they are bad. And I'd say that this one still on a fine line of it, but it does skew more towards good than bad, in my opinion. So let's flip now into the artwork for this one. And I'll go back into OBS here. Here we are. Perfect. So we'll start off here with Dead Man. And again, this artwork here is like pretty dope. So here you have, I guess cultists is what you would call them. And when they begin kind of to sacrifice, and then Dead Man and Nightwing kind of go into action. But there's this one, here we are, where it basically pulls them into this world where it is like kind of the Carney Haven, but it's not what they think it is, and where this is the woman that jumped off the bridge, but it's going after Nightwing, gets sent off into this pit, basically. So that's that one. Then we have Time Jerks with the Justice League on both sides, trying to talk to Booster. And this is where Booster runs into Jurassic League Booster version. So they try to fight him off as best as they can. But basically, Booster's like, okay, I can now get this fixed and just make sure that we actually have the human one, that we're good to go. And so that's what they do, which is good. And then the Duality. This artwork, it's mostly like the text. You can see there's a shit ton of text that you have here, right? So it's mostly about like the actual storytelling than it is the artwork itself on this one. And then going over to the Invaders, this is kind of fine as well too. More of a shorter story than the other ones, but basically here's where the alien, they're starting to realize like it's just afraid, it needs to be released, and that's what they do, send it off on its merry way. So yeah, it's Batman Brave and the Bold, number 15. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.8. Then next up here we have Storm, number 4. This is awesome. League was actually much higher than I thought they were going to be on this one. So I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.4. It's a great issue. I think it was solid 4. I wouldn't have gone 4.5 on this one. But for this, we have Storm. She's about to die. And Dr. Voodoo recognized that. And the way that he prevented her from dying is he made a deal with some sort of demon. A deal with a demon. And basically, in order to cure Storm, she was not allowed to use her powers for 7 full days. So she seems like she's pretty good. But then suddenly she's summoned to Doom. And it's like on this big old owl thing. And basically, she talks to this owl. It's just like sentient and like talking back. And it's like, hey, I can't just go. Can you take me? And that's a big tell to Doom. So Doom holds this big old like feast, dinner. And they do a really good job of like showing like how far in lengths that Doom goes to like make sure that every single detail is okay. But as you can tell, it's all like a test. And it gets to the point where Doom like throws a knife and it is going to go towards a pastry chef because the pastry chef intentionally screwed up a detail, but he did it on purpose in order to be like, this is a reason to now, quote unquote, sacrifice this person, or at least attempt it to see if Storm's going to stop it. And Storm does. And so when Storm does, then the demon that was all ticked off, of course, is then summoned and is like, you think you can get one over on me? We had a deal. You weren't supposed to use your powers for 7 days, and here you are. And then he kills Storm. Like, oh shit, kills Storm. Dead. But, of course, no one ever dies, especially in the X-Men. So she doesn't actually die. She has, like, some sort of metamorphosis. But as this is taking place, in the background, it's Doom and this demon are fighting each other. Now that I'm, like, talking about it, I'm kind of hyping myself. Maybe this was a 4.5. But they're fighting, and then at the very end, Storm is actually back, but in this, like, crazy kind of, like, metamorphosis form. So, pretty dope book. Storm is awesome. So let's go into the artwork here. So here is where Dr. Voodoo's kind of doing his thing. Storm arrives at Doom's place and is going to have dinner. She gets all dolled up and ready for this feast in this super green ball gown, obviously for Doom. And they're having this whole conversation. He makes a meal that brings her way back to her childhood. And it's like perfect down to like, the spices and everything as well. Tastes exactly like she would imagine. But then she goes to have dessert and you can tell that she doesn't really like it. So that's when he brings out this pastry chef. And when they're about to kill, that's when Storm doesn't actually use her Storm things to start. She like throws a knife. But here you can tell like she was pushed to the limit. And this is where the demon is summoned. It's like, you think you can cheat me? There's no effing way. And that's when he kills Storm. And she's just dead. So now she's in the afterlife. She sees her dad, but it's like only kind of temporarily. And with that as well, I think it's a different issue. Never mind. There's like a different issue where she sees her daughter, but I think that's in the previous one. But of course, she comes back, but in this like metamorphosis form. Like, look at this page here. Make sure there's no glare on this one because this is freaking dope. Where you have Storm coming back into a different form, but back to the world. So while the demon and Doom are fighting, she's back in like this metamorphosis, like 4-wing angelic looking form of Storm. So yeah, super dope. I might revise this and actually give it a 4.5. That was a dope issue. And then of course I got the Marvel Rivals cover as well instead of like kind of the standard one too, which is incredible. So this is the book I'd say at this point Storm is like really starting to pick up. I think I did drop Storm moving forward just because it's part of the backlogs and just want to get caught up. Of course, if you ever want to continue stories with Marvel, you just have to wait a couple of weeks, and then eventually it's going to be on Marvel Unlimited anyways. But this was an excellent one, and I was like, okay, cool. This is like kind of getting to the point of Storm where I thought we would be at here at issue 4. Is it time to jump in? Probably not, I'd say. It's way more current at this point. I think we're on Storm like 10 or so, 8 or 10, somewhere around there. But the 4 was definitely a fun one. So again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.4. And then we got just 3 more books here. So we got Batman 156. This one I gave a 4. Lee gave it a 3.9. This book here is interesting because we kind of have the heightening and crescendo, if you will, of this new version of Nigma. So, pardon me, just grabbing a sip of coffee here. So, Batman now realizes that Enigma had something to do with Gordon killing the mayor. So, mayor's dead, framed Gordon. He was wearing some glasses. It had some Enigma technology in it. So now we're like straight up just going after Enigma. Gordon was also having an affair with the mayor's wife as well. Had nothing really to do with anything personal, but in the end, they confronted each other. And Gordon did kill the mayor, but it was under the influence of Enigma. So now Batman is going after him, of course. But in, of course, all the games that they're doing, a couple things are happening. One is in Gotham, there's this protest that's happening outside of Wayne Tower. So that's one thing. But as Batman is fighting his way up top, he's realizing that the Riddler is Enigma, is part of also the Court of Owls, or he's been working in tandem with them. And going through his security system, he realizes that, you know, Enigma has this like cryptography company that he's built up. And in partnering with the Court of Owls, he looks like he has given out some of these like codes or a cipher basically to figure out how to break a bunch of different codes to the head of the Court of Owls, which is, his name is Leonid, and basically he seems or is likely some sort of Russian spy. So that includes like nuclear codes that now the Russians could potentially have. Way grander than just Gotham and the country of like, this is a global now crisis. So Enigma realizes that he kind of effed up here. Jim meets up with Batman, and they're like, we got to basically split up at this point. So Jim, you go after Enigma, and then Batman's going to go after Leonid, the head of the Court of Owls, before he leaves the country. So Gordon catches up to Enigma. He's able to capture him and bring him in. We don't know if Batman actually gets to Leonid before he leaves. We have a image of Leonid getting to like a helicopter pad, so we'll see what all happens there. At the same time, there's this other hero that basically has been there as well, but he's kind of been like an anti-hero, really. Seems more to be very like right-wing opposite hero as far as values compared to like Batman. And like there's just a bunch of descriptions that he would go on to like these news reporting stations and just be very right-wing in his approach. So a different style than how Batman would go about doing anything. And he just basically lets the protest burn down to the ground. And like, this isn't like a political stance, like just read the book. That's what this is about, right? So, and it's basically then revealed to us that this guy, that's his name, Commander Starr, is not actually helping out and not like another pseudo version of Batman out there trying to protect Gotham. He's actually the KG Beast, i.e. he is like an agent of Russia as well. So it's starting to turn now into like a US versus Russia thing, where we have the leader of the Court of Owls is like a Russian spy, and this Commander Starr, who's supposed to be this other hero out there, and one that the police commander, commissioner, and mayor preferred over Batman, actually looks to be the KG Beast, which is like part of like the Russian oligarchy as well. So that's the cliffhanger it leaves off on. We'll see where it all goes. Comics can get very political. This one does as well. To me, I'm not one to really talk about it on podcasts. I mean, there's plenty of places that you can get your politics, that's for damn sure. But when we talk about it, I'm just going to say, here's what the book's about. So you hate it, love it, whatever. It is what it is. So, with that, I gave the book a 4. Lee gave it a 3.9. Let's go ahead and jump in real quick to some of the, you know what? I realized this was a little bit out of frame here. But some of the artwork here. So these are the protests that are taking place early on. This is where you have, Commander Starr here, but he's actually the KG Beast. And then the fight that's taking place up into Enigma's corporate building. Batman fighting his way up. And Batman basically coming to the realization that Enigma had given those codes away. And Jim catching up with him as well. And then so we get to the point, a lot of fighting that takes place here. where, oh, well, this is actually the part where Jim finally catches up with him. But they decide that they got to split up. And so Jim goes after Enigma. He's able to take whoever his head of security is there. This is where Leonid is leaving, and you have Batman going after him. But as these protests are going on, Commander Star seems to actually be just like stirring them up even further. And this is where it turns out that he's actually the KG Beast. So he's Commander Star here, but this is actually who he really is. So yeah, it's an interesting book. It's kind of like, all right, now we have this thing that seemed like something that's local to just Gotham that's now like this international action movie thriller that's happening here. So Batman City on Fire, this is issue number 156. Not the one to jump into. You just want to get current, honestly, with Batman, I would think. Or you have Hush that just happened. I think that's a couple issues after this. Maybe it starts at 158, 159, something like that. That's maybe where you want to get in as well. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.9. Then we have Miles Morales Spider-Man number 20. So this book, I would just say, and I don't like saying it, but this is actually genuinely true. This is just a filler issue. So I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4 as well.
Nailed it. I know. Thank you. Moving on.
And everything that has taken place up to this point, a lot of it was about his arch nemesis, Rabble. She's taken care of. This issue right here is one issue in between all of that's taken place beforehand, even after Gang Wars and everything else, after Miles Morales 300. It's between that and Blood Hunt. The very next issue, 21, is going to be the start of Blood Hunt. So they just seem like they need like a one-shot, just get us by, so then we can start writing about Blood Hunt, is what this is all about. So Rabble's put to the side. We have Miles, we have Shift, and we have Miss Marvel, Starling. They all go to this art museum. They're trying to get Shift more acclimated, basically, to just being a human in human life and teach him how to speak and everything. So as they're at this art show and gallery and park or whatever, they run into, is it Obadiah? Or it's something like that. Let's pull up the notes here. Obsidian, Black Obsidian, who's stealing all the artwork. So then all the heroes just go into action. They stop the guy from stealing the artwork. They save the day. Everything's fine. Then at the very end, in the last quarter of the issue, it's about another kind of minor villain, Hightail, who's been part of the Cape Killers, and she's basically trying to stay good, stay on the right side of the law as much as she possibly can. At the end, she goes to her abuela's house, maybe auntie's house, Tia's, and they're hanging out, they're talking, and suddenly there's like these big explosions outside. So she heads outside and she sees basically the first vampire and the start of Blood Hunt. So all issue 20 is like a one shot of Miles getting ready for Blood Hunt, is the way that I would describe it. So is it okay to jump in? You'd be totally fine. It is truly just a one shot. So if you want just a random book to read as a single adventure, actually issue number 20 of Miles Morales Spider-Man would be totally completely fine. But you can jump in here, you can jump into the next one. I think that'd be fine too, because 21 is going to be the start of that event. And I've read that whole thing. I read a couple of different books that intersected with Blood Hunt. So now it'd be actually be cool to see from Miles' side, because I know what happens to him as well. So I'm interested to see if that happens in 21 or in 22. Should be kind of cool. So anyways, with that, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4 as well. Let's go ahead and show off some of the art. Miles has always been pretty good. I think this, is more of some of that good stuff as well. So, right, you have all the webs that are going in between the panels and everything like that. I love stuff like that. That's a big reason as to why I've just been continuing with Miles all these months and years, even though it was sitting on my backlog forever. I think Miles is now like 34, 35. And this is from May 15, 2024. So over a year ago at this point. But I try to make it a point that Miles is like always in the Omega. Like, look at this. This is a pretty sweet full spread that you have going here. Just because I like carving my way through it, which is good. So yeah, that is Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 20. Here's where you have Hightail and the realization of the zombies at the end. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4 as well. And then last but not least, the trade. Local Man, number 1. I read one of these random one-shots a while ago, and to me, it looked so good. Or it was so good, and this was like, I could tell, the formation of where the addiction of trying to collect everything started to kick in. Because I read one book, and I was like, oh man, it's not that bad. I just have to pick up 2 trades and I'd be completely caught up. So that's what I went ahead and did. And I can't recall if they ordered them special for me or if they already had them. I think they ordered them special for me. But that's where, like, really the whole, I wouldn't say addiction, but the enthusiasm for comic book collecting started to take place here. And I'm glad I did, because I know it's a pretty good series. People seem to like it a lot, and I think it's already wrapped up at this point. But issue number 1, still trying to figure out this whole universe. From what I understand and what it seems like is you have a whole bunch of these different kind of like smaller groups that are like local celebrities, local heroes. So you're not getting to like the big national, and you're almost like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but even that, it's like at like a Midwest type of level. So we have here our protagonist here who's like kicked out of this group, and we don't really know why. So his name is Crossjack, and he's like kind of the main person, but you don't really know that in the beginning or for the first issue. And so he was kicked out for reasons that we don't quite understand or know. And I'm sorry, I should say what I gave this. I gave it a 4. I don't know what Lee gave it though, because the way that they do trades, I'm just not so sure. The trade overall was given a 4.3. But I'm not too sure what Lee would have given for this particular issue. But anyways, so Crossjack, he was kicked out of this group for whatever reason, so he's unemployed, tries to go back home. His parents are there, and now he has to live home, try to figure out what he's going to do next. And he got kicked out of this group for reasons we don't really know, in some place in the Midwest, and tries to go to a local bar, hang out with some of his old friends. None of them wants anything to do with him. They all like kind of like recognize him, like, oh, are you Crossjack? And as soon as they realize that, they want nothing to do with him. We don't really know why. But when he's in this bar, this old villain that I guess he used to fight back in the day, his name is Hogad, Hogad. So he fights him real quick in the bar. No one's impressed by it. Everyone's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, leave the guy alone. But the police, they go ahead and they arrest Hogad. So then while at the bar, Crossjack sees like an old girlfriend, catches up with her real quick. She's doing really well. I think married kids, and like has a bakery business where she's trying to open up the second location. So Crossjack's like, shit, like I am just a piece of crap, not doing anything with my life, and just got kicked out. Real quick, he was like served and subpoenaed from his group because I guess he's doing superhero activities, and like as part of being kicked out, he wasn't allowed to do that. There's like some sort of love interest that's still part, who's like kind of not looking back at him, but he's getting flashbacks. So who knows if that had something to do with it as well. So we're just trying to figure out what all happened to Crossjack and like what is this universe all about. But at the very end, that villain, Hogad, who is in jail, and it's just like a very small town local jail, it flips over to him, and he's in that jail cell, and he's completely tied up with all these chains, bloodied up, and he looks like he's dead, suspending from the ceiling. So that's the cliffhanger. I was like, this is dope. I'm so interested. I love it when we bring things down from power levels, you know? It doesn't need to be this huge grandiose thing of, Dragon Ball Z, where we're fighting gods upon gods upon gods, and there's always this bigger god to be fighting. Sometimes it is just better at this local kind of petty level. So that's Local Man, number 1. I'm definitely going to keep reading this, and it's interesting to have it in trades because we got to stop as we're going through it a little bit as well. So let's go ahead and flip over to some of the artwork here. And yeah, so you can see him there. And so I'm pretty sure this is Crossjack here. So, basically like a Captain America kind of knockoff guy. But like this whole group and what it's all about, not entirely sure. So we'll have to see. That's him with his parents and everything all hanging out. And yeah, here's like the love interest that I mentioned before. So you kind of get that flashback there. So here's him, at the bar. And then you have enter Hogad. Of course, Crossjack tries to stop him, and he does. And here's where he's talking and catching up with that ex-girlfriend. And then the rest of, I guess, his squad kind of, kind of catches up with him here on like, hey, like you can't be doing whatever it is that you're doing, and you're like subpoenaed basically. So that all takes place. The guy's then thrown into jail here, and then at the very end is where you have the Hogad all tied up, bloodied up, chained up, and it says special deliverance. So we'll see what it's all about. Looking forward to it. So again, that's Local Man, just the first issue. Again, I gave it a 4. I guess Lee gave it a 4.3 is what I can say, but I'd have to see on the singles what they actually did. I actually wonder if I can figure that out real quick. Number 1 here. I can. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I gave that one a 4. Lee gave it a 4.1 was the start of it. So, yeah, that's that. So with that, let's go ahead and pull together all the books. So I'll read them top to bottom just so you can get a refresher. And then the new thing I've been doing is like try to give you a little tidbit and just like here's the 1-sentence review on it. So first we had Scarlet Witch number 4. This is the end of the Griever, and then we're gonna start into the fight with Scythian. Then we had The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 17. This is back from 2023. Got a taste as to why this isn't a void. I have the Disney cover, so that's what led me to read it in the first place because it was on my son's bookshelf. Batman, the Brave and the Bold, like more of a continuation of the anthology. Biggest highlight here, I think, were the time jerks. Some of the other ones are just kind of continuing on. Duality seems like it'll be pretty cool. Then we had Storm number 4. Again, I got the Marvel Rivals cover for this one. Awesome fight that you had with Storm and Doom, and then this new demon has been revealed. Storm dies, but then comes back in the end. We'll see where that goes from there. Batman 156, we go from just a Gotham fight to something that could be like international with nuclear codes and someone who was like a local villain to now could be an agent for Russia as well. So pretty cool book there. Miles Morales Spider-Man, just a filler issue to get us ready for Blood Hunt. And then Local Man number 1. So just the start of this volume, trying to figure out Crossjack and what all is happening with him and the adventures we're about to get into. So those are the 7 books that I have for today. Before we completely close out for the day, I do want to talk about the polls for next week as this is a standard issue. So let's go ahead and do that. And we are locked and loaded here. For next week, this is probably the last, and I have been saying this if you've been following, I mean it this time. The last big week that I have, 18 books. I've been looking to see into the future what else. Nice thing about League is when you have all the pulls in there correctly, you're able to then see like truly what is all on that list. And this is the last big one. So I'll just go through it. I'll let you know what's current and what's going to be a backlog. So Absolute Martian Manhunter number 5. Then we have Absolute Wonder Woman number 10. And that cover actually looks really trippy compared to some of the other ones. So I'm interested to see what that's going to be about. Then Batman 161. Oh, wow. I didn't even realize I was that kind of close on finishing up on Batman. So that's cool. Bronze Faces number 4. I think I stopped this one, so I'm not sure if I'm going to get it or not. It's from Boom Studio as well, so we'll see. Dark Honor number 3. I think this is the last I get of that one. Exquisite Corpses. Hell yeah. Exquisite Corpses number 3. Looking forward to that. Hornsby and Halo number 8. Buck, Big Bad World number 3. Has been a lot of fun. Iron Man 10. Justice League Unlimited 9. Minor Arcana 9. I think things are really going to start picking up on that book. Phoenix number 13. That'll be the last for that one. That is a backlog. Rockefellers number 7. It's a dope cover. Looking forward to that. The Seasons number 6. I think that one's coming towards an end. Storm number 10. I think that'll be the last of that. Uncanny X-Men number 18 for sure. That'll be the last. And I should say Storm is a backlog as well. Void Rivals number 21. And then West Coast Avengers number 9. So those are the titles, 18 there. We'll see how many of them actually come through. My guess is going to be anywhere between 14 or 15 for next week. But either way, looking forward to it. Again, going on vacation, like I mentioned, right? So goal is like for sure you'll have a Saturday issue, but I'll see if I can do an Omega. Gonna try to bring some books with me as well, but you just never know if you're gonna be able to get through them or not, because the routines just get all kind of a little screwy. But either way, that's what we got going on. Obviously, all the socials and everything are in the descriptions, on the YouTube page, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. So appreciate you guys all for tuning in and for watching. Thank you so very much, and I will see you in the next one.
This has been a DMW production. Thanks for stopping by.